Hello again, this is Tom Mahon from Banetti, here to continue with our four-part series on asset management and the IBM Maximo products. Today we're going to do part two. We're going to talk about Maximo Asset Management, the core product, if you will, upon which everything else is built. And in part three we're going to talk industry solutions, and in part four we'll talk about Maximo Application Suite, the new generation of technology supporting the MRO space. The goals of the Maximo product team have been, for many years, to enable smarter enterprise asset and workplace management across all asset classes, all industries, government, public sector, private industry, worldwide. And they've been very successful at doing that, being market leaders, recognized since the late 90s as the most advanced set of capabilities on the market and the best vision on the market. We do that by providing deep industry-specific functionality, and we operate on open standards in a very configurable set of capabilities. It's flexible, operate anywhere, support 17 languages, multiple currencies, multi-site, multi-org, all the types of robust things that large enterprises need to have a very functional and robust enterprise class system. A little bit of history about a company that started in 1968 called PSDI, Project Software Development. Came out of a research project on how computers can do project management software out of MIT University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. As the project software development capabilities were superseded by Microsoft's project software, customers could buy a piece of software for a couple $100 that generated Gantt charts, and that decimated the true project software management tool industry, and it has never recovered. So the company shifted its focus to say, how do we actually manage the work that's on those tasks in that project plan, and started to come up with versions of Maximo. It started out on a DOS product, single user, eventually went to a client-server technology with applications on Windows computers and a central server that would store the database. In the year 2000, the company renamed itself as we went public, and this more accurately reflected the mission of the corporation, was to do MRO software. Then in the early 2000s, Maximo version 5 came out. This was the first version that was web-based, so Java backend, Java class files delivered across the web, eliminated the client-server requirements of installing software on workstations. In about 2006, MRO software was acquired by IBM. Since then, the Maximo Asset Management product has moved through versions 7, 7.5, and 7.6. And right now, Maximo Asset Management that we know and love is on version 7.613. That is the last version of that product that IBM will deliver. They have shifted all of their focus to what they now call the Maximo Application Suite. The core application suite was released in about 2020. In 2021, the Maximo Application Suite was expanded to include the Manage application, which incorporates all of the previous Maximo Enterprise Asset Management functionality. And then in 2024, that will be moving to a version 9 and reset the product lifecycle on a little different path. Important to note that the Maximo Asset Management product is going to go out of support in September 30th, 2025. Now, the functionality that we're going to discuss today on the core Maximo product still very much exists on the application suite. When we look at the Maximo core product, we're going to talk about the modules, if you will, of the capabilities of the product. We break it down into about a half a dozen different categories: asset management, work management, materials, procurement, and contract management. And then we'll talk briefly on service management across that. So all these capabilities are built into a single environment on a single database, integrated. The modules all talk to each other, and there's relationships and connections between them. So let's dive into what these capabilities represent. From an asset management perspective, we're going to capture all the details about the entire asset infrastructure, the spare parts required, the performance and work history, to put ourselves in a position to do a better job of making repair versus replace decisions, and decrease reactive maintenance and unplanned downtime. Those are the goals of the asset inventory. So we want to know the location and function and work and cost history. We want to know the asset inventory, asset models, the spare parts, the attributes associated with it, the meters that are captured against an asset, any known safety hazards, and then elimination procedures and lockout tagout procedures that are applicable to that location or to that asset, how we're going to do condition monitoring, how we're going to generate work orders based on tolerances when things are out of line. That's all part of our asset management module, and it's a very robust set of capabilities. Work management is where it all comes together. How do we keep track of all of the work that's performed by the organization, planned and unplanned, projects that are due to be done in the future, work that's being performed every day, operational activities. So we need to lay out job plans that are reusable. We want an inventory of job plans across classes of assets that we can repurpose to be very efficient. We'll do preventive, predictive, recurring maintenance, and corrective maintenance. We'll keep track of all of the labor, skills, qualifications, and everything required to perform the work, and then all the labor, materials, services, and tools that are captured to actually record the work that's being performed. We want an assignment and scheduling capabilities, and we want this to be very mobile. So you'll see things like safety plans and labor tracking, labor reporting, preventive maintenance, master PMs, the qualifications and skills, certifications of individuals, service items. These all roll into an extremely capable work management system that can support all sorts of different business requirements. When we get into supply chain, kind of three aspects to that. First off, we need an inventory of all the on-hand materials. That in times can run into millions of dollars worth of goods that are kept on hand in the event that they are required for maintenance activities, planned and unplanned. So we need a whole bunch of different storerooms. That can range from a cart that gets walked around through a factory to thousands of square feet in a major storeroom that's got 3 or 4 people managing it all day long. That type of inventory exists in our customers. We need to keep track of all of the stuff that's in there, what condition it's in, whether it's new, used, rebuilt, and the on-hand inventory, the reorder point that's associated with it, the economic order quantity. We need to be able to do what's called ABC analysis to determine which are the most critical parts that we need to have on hand and which are not. And we need to optimize that inventory level. We need to look at where we can cull the inventory down and still be effective in what we do to free up some cost and money associated with the inventory. We need to keep track of all the transactions, the issues and returns, transfers between storerooms, and the costs associated with that. So every storeroom will have a list of GL accounts that all the transactions get charged against, part of the product. When it comes time to get more product, either based on reaching that reorder point or a specific project or work plan has materials that aren't stocked in inventory, then we need to go do an acquisition of that, from a desktop rec where somebody can just key in things that they want to go buy, to purchase requisitions. You can generate requests for quote in Maximo as well and send it out to vendors. You can then generate purchase orders, receive and stock that inventory, or issue it directly out to a work order, and then keep track of all of the invoices that have come in against those receipts, do invoice matching, 3-part matching if you will, so we can capture the actual costs of the inventory and or the work order that's being performed. Now, many times organizations in the interest of efficiency will set up basic purchase agreements for goods and services. So Grainger, for example, most of the MRO organizations buy a lot of stuff from Grainger. So they'll have a standing contract of the materials and goods that they buy on a regular basis. And the way many of those contracts work, the more you buy, the better the discounts. So there's a focus in using those contracts as you go through the procurement process. Lease and rental contracts are very important. Some items are on lease permanently as an effective investment strategy. Others are rented just for particular jobs, but we've got a set of contracts in place that allow us to just reach out to the vendor and have a negotiated set of terms and conditions and pricing. Warranty is basically a contract for service that says if there is a problem with this particular asset, there is a cost recovery process or the manufacturer will perform the work. In the transportation industry, for example, warranty cost recovery can recover the cost of your Maximo implementation. So terms and conditions can be assigned into contracts. All these capabilities exist in the Maximo environment as a series of applications that can be employed to have an efficient supply chain process. Planning and scheduling is key. We talked on session 1 about how to put together a detailed plan that identifies the tasks and their duration, the resource requirements, the people, the materials, the tools, the services. All those need to be looked at. And for many organizations that plot out, for example, an automotive manufacturing plant, when they do a model year refresh, they go stop the plant, they go through virtually all the different workstations and adjust what's required, whether it be a new mold for the body parts or a new vehicle entirely and an entirely different structure on the assembly line. All of that needs to be articulated out in detailed work plans with labor, material, tool, and service estimates. And then an optimization engine can be run to go out and figure out how should we organize this work so that we can get it done in the most efficient way possible. Sometimes these can run up to 100,000 work orders. When the Navy brings an aircraft carrier in, their requirements extend up to as many as 100,000 work orders that need to be performed, and they're looking for optimization tools to do it. That is an extreme example, but smaller examples exist in companies all over the place. On a more local level, there's a detailed capability where a shop supervisor can look at the work requirements on a graphic view of his work assignments to his staff. He can align those together. He can do a drag and drop of assigning work to a worker and then track the completion of the work in the work order module. So those are all capabilities at various levels within the Maximo environment. Another key part of the core Maximo deployment, mobility. More and more over time, people are expecting their workers to be able to capture the work and look up more information about their work on a mobile device, whether that be a tablet or a phone. That is the delivery vehicle for a lot of our information. So IBM has come out with multiple generations of products. The two that are still in use at time to time, the Maximo Anywhere product, which has been deprecated from sales and will eventually be pulled from support, is an older technology for communications. It's separate applications for each of the work processes. It has been completely revised, revamped, replaced by the Maximo Mobile technology, which has the ability to do work management, asset tracking, inventory, and more. It's all on a single application downloadable from the application stores, from Google and Apple, and then connected up to Maximo to download the work that needs to be done by an individual. So there are additional capabilities that leverage what the device does, so you can scan barcodes in a field, you can take pictures, you can do video conferencing with experts. All that information is available to people in the field. And then there's a number of different routes to go with analytics and reports, all on the core Maximo product. Maximo includes a BERT reporting tool and a couple of hundred reports out of the box that people can use, pre-configured reports. You can also set up what's called key performance indicators on the Start Center. You can put queries, you can put charts and graphs, and you can do all sorts of visual representations of your data. And then Banetti and others have developed tools for business intelligence that go extract data out of Maximo and do higher end analytics. And you'll see more of this in the application suite as well, to where people can get insights into their data and turn it into useful information that they can use as a basis for decisions. I want to take another perspective on Maximo and one of the key reasons why it's been so successful for so many companies for so many years. In this visual representation of the Maximo platform, you'll see those 6 major module areas of Maximo: assets, work, materials, purchasing, contracts, and service management, and the applications that are in what we refer to as the core product, the user-facing applications that people use to run their business. What you'll also get with the Maximo platform is these ribbons across the bottom of the screen, and that is the configurability of the software. That's where Maximo really shines, and always has for 30 years now, is the ability to configure and tailor the software to exactly what the customer needs to make it work best for that customer. Some examples. There's an application designer tool that allows you to modify the user interface. The work order screen out of the box comes with 1,000 fields, and most companies want to make a copy of that work order screen and skinny it down to just the key pieces that their workers need to be able to do their job, which is what we allow with the application designer. So you can have multiple copies of the work order application there for different portions of your business, different user constituencies, and you can also create new applications against new database structures that you put into the Maximo environment. So you can do some editing to the database structure. You can add fields. It's the most important thing that most people do. You can actually add new tables and put a new user interface on those. You can create new indexes if your method for querying is slowing things down. You can go look at how you can accelerate the database performance using the database configuration application. Maximo calls them domains. A lot of people call them value lists. So the ability to say types of work that are performed. Maximo comes with 4 or 5 out-of-box work types. You can create more work types. They may be unique and separable from the work types that are out of the box, or they may just be synonyms for the ones that are out of the box. Same thing with work status. You can define as many work statuses as you want in Maximo. So it has that kind of configurability. You can create new value lists for your new data structures even. There are hundreds of configuration options for the platform and the system to tune performance. And you can also do extensions to the product. Automation scripting is the preferred model. It's a runtime version of how you can do some programming to cause things that happen based on transactions on the screen in the Maximo environment. Previously, there were a lot of customers and consultants that got involved with what we call Java class file extensions. That is still supported in Maximo. It is highly discouraged. Move your Java class files into the automation scripting, simplify your upgrade process, make it a runtime capability, and you don't have to rebuild your Maximo every time you go make a change to a class file. The other one that we've gotten away from pretty aggressively over the years is database processing, database triggers built into the Oracle or SQL Server, things like that, where people would do additional refinement of data once a transaction is posted. Again, move those to automation scripting, and let's stay out of the database performance. Another major part of the configurability is business process automation, workflows. Maximo comes with a blank canvas. Lay out your Visio-like diagram for how you want the work process to flow, who does the approvals, what's the conditions that cause it to go through different branches of the workflow, applicable to just about any application in Maximo that has any kind of status change. And we can fire off a work order. So if your job plan requires an approval because you're in a certified regulated industry, then any change to that job plan gets versioned and sent off through that approval process. And we can do versioning of the workflows. You can also get a graphic display of where your particular transaction is in the workflow. Notifications and escalations. A key part of a workflow is when it goes to an individual, it notifies that individual that, hey, you have a transaction out here, we want you to take a look at it and approve or disapprove. And if you don't respond fast enough, we're going to escalate that to somebody else. Maybe you're on vacation, maybe it's something that needs a 1-hour response. So with the notifications and escalations, you can define any SQL query on any aspect of Maximo and tell a system to go run that query intermittently. Once in a while, go out there and run the query. If you find any hits against that query, here's the action I want you to take, whether that be an email or a text message or create a work order. All sorts of actions can be performed. One thing to be careful on with notifications and escalations, if you schedule too many of them, you will kill your system. So you have to be judicious in how often those queries are run. It's a key issue that many customers have run into to actually crash their Maximo servers by asking it to do too much. Either way, it's a very, very robust set of capabilities for configuration. And many customers, this is the reason they're able to continue using Maximo for all these years. Let's talk briefly about the Maximo integration framework. The MIF, as we like to call it, is designed to put an external report or integration capability on top of all of the Maximo business objects. So you use Maximo applications. This is not just Java programming to create APIs. You use the applications of the MIF to create report object structures on how you're going to move data in and out of Maximo. So you get the right data elements. You let the Maximo business objects actually develop the query to pull it from the right tables. and get the right relationships enforced in putting your denormalized data into a format that's going to support a message to an external system. On the flip side, when messages come into Maximo, the MIF will then parse those out, put them in the correct format, send them back through the business objects, and post them into the database. So this is a very robust set of capabilities. It's built on a wide range of industry standards. You'll hear acronyms like REST APIs, OSLC, XML traffic, HTTP posts, flat files, comma-separated values. We can support all sorts of different technologies to move data in and out of Maximo. One example where it's very important, we talked earlier about the procurement process, and more often than not, customer puts their hand up and say, well, our purchasing is done in our ERP and we can't change that. We have predefined integration capabilities for SAP and Oracle and Workday that acknowledge that, respect it, and try to accelerate the implementation of it. So a requisition is developed in Maximo. It goes through a workflow for the maintenance department to do an approval to say, yes, we're going to buy those things out of our budget. Then that purchase requisition is sent to SAP or Oracle. It goes through the SAP purchasing process. It gets a PO assigned, and then that PO comes back into Maximo for receipt. And then when the invoice match comes in, that also comes back into Maximo. It can even go so far as to support what we call splits and combines. The requisitions that come out of Maximo may be split into multiple purchase orders, or they may be combined into a single purchase order. And the interface is responsible to take care of all of those transactions. In order to do that, we need to agree on item numbers, GL codes, company identifiers, and a whole lot of other interface points that are all part of that standard. There's typically around 40 different points that you can talk to when you're discussing things with an ERP. So Maximo has been very successful. It's our first interface with an Oracle financial system. Was actually developed in the late 90s, early 2000s. IBM developed it with SAP, and it has been a very successful part of the Maximo business for many, many years. Another major part of configuration is KPIs, reports, analytics. The KPIs are primarily displayed on what we call the Maximo Start Centers. So different roles will have a different view of data. If you're a work management supervisor, you're going to get a different view of information than an inventory storeroom manager. But you can set up role-based queries that can result in lists of prioritized activities, or it can be charts, pie charts, histograms, those types of things that will allow the user to log into the system and get an immediate splash screen that says, here's the things you need to pay attention to that you think are most important. And you can set up to where users can actually edit those screens themselves to refine them over time. That's entirely supported. And that can give you a lot of insight into what's going on very quickly and accelerate your value out of the Maximo product. The ad hoc report system that's built in can be used by any and all users. The reports that they create can actually be shared to other users as well. You can also create BERT reports in Maximo. Just a quick note though, in future versions of Maximo, the BERT tool will be deprecated and they'll focus more on the ad hoc report engine. More details on that when they're available. And Cognos has been available for Maximo versions 7 and earlier for a number of years. It just now got added back into version 8 so that you can use Cognos Analytics, and they've developed some of the Cognos data extract layers, the cubes they call them, to get the data out of Maximo into a denormalized format to accelerate the analytics that Cognos and other business intelligence tools can provide. Access rights and security. The premise is zero access to anybody until they're specifically given access to anything. So the user profiles are set up. Users are first defined typically in an Active Directory environment external to Maximo to identify who is still a valid employee and who should be allowed to log into Maximo. Then those users are copied over to Maximo and they're put into a generic group with very, very minimal set of access capabilities. Once they're into Maximo, then the administrator of security in Maximo can go through and say, what specific role is that individual going to have? And that role is defined as a security group in Maximo. And that goes through each application, each tab, each screen, each business process, and allows them to edit or view data. That can result in over 1,000 different possible switches to turn on and off for each group. So it's a very, very granular set of capabilities, and it can even go down to the field level control on who can edit a field on a screen compared to editing the whole screen. So you then link all of those security groups together. An individual may be assigned to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups depending on their role and what they need access to, and that accumulates to their full set of access within the Maximo environment. This is also very significant in that it can vary by your site or organization and how the data are segregated in Maximo to allow people to work only on data at their site, but certain individuals may have visibility on data across multiple sites. So all the user access, there's a little bit on security here from an IT perspective. All the user access is through a secure socket layer. Data is encrypted at rest and in transit. Securing access to the environment is entirely different from the security groups within Maximo. Software as a service, IBM and others will provide SaaS. They're responsible for the security. Many federal agencies require a level of security called FedRAMP, the Federal Risk Assessment and Management Program. And the Department of Defense goes even to a higher level of security above and beyond that. So from a system security perspective, that's another whole set of capabilities that people can investigate and explore. With that, we talked about the core Maximo product. Thank you for your time, and we will continue on with our session here in a little bit with part 3 to talk about industry solutions and add-ons.